He said it out loud on camera, no hesitation. He does not believe in marriage. Not couples therapy, not a bad day, just a flat admission that the entire institution feels like a leash to him. And before that sentence even settles, somebody looks Sarper dead in the eye and tells him to run. Not walk. Run. Two couples, same resort, same week, and both of them are watching their marriages come apart in completely different ways. One husband thinks freedom and marriage cannot coexist. One wife just found out the entire group would rather she disappear than stay married to a man they actually like. So here is the question worth sitting with. When your own castmates start rooting for your spouse to leave you, is there anything left to save? Before we get to that cliff, let's rewind for a second, because Jenny and Sumit did not walk into this episode on solid ground to begin with. This is a couple that has spent the whole season circling the same question. Does Sumit actually want this marriage? Or does he just want the version of it that costs him nothing? Jenny has been carrying doubts for weeks. Sumit has been dodging most of them. And today, the resort decided the best way to test a shaky marriage was to hang one partner off the side of a cliff. Nothing exposes a marriage faster than a crisis with no script. The setup is simple on paper. Sumit climbs down the cliff face, and Jenny has to guide him using only her voice. No cheat sheet, no do-overs, just trust and communication under real pressure. And for a solid, uncomfortable stretch, Jenny cannot do it. Sumit is 30 feet up, gripping the rock, yelling for direction, and Jenny freezes completely. She goes quiet. Not calm quiet, panicked quiet. The kind where your brain is screaming and your mouth stops working. Watching your husband dangle off a cliff while you draw a blank is not a great metaphor for a marriage that is already on shaky footing, is it? Sumit keeps calling down to her, practically begging her to just speak, and for a moment it looks like this exercise is going to end in the worst possible way, with Jenny locking up and Sumit stuck feeling like he has nobody in his corner. That is the scary part of trust exercises like this. They do not just test communication. They put it on display for everyone to watch fail in real time. But here is where it turns, and honestly it is the best either of them looks all day. The therapist steps in, grounds Jenny, and something clicks. She starts directing him calmly, clearly, and Sumit actually listens. From that point on, they are locked in. Sumit is thriving because if we are honest, this is exactly his lane. He loves this adrenaline, this physical challenge energy, and once Jenny finds her footing as his guide, the two of them start moving like an actual team. They reach the goal. They are both thrilled. Sumit gets a little full of himself about it, sure, and in my opinion Jenny deserves at least half the credit here, since she is the one who talked him down safely. But nobody is arguing in this moment. They are laughing, they are relieved, they hug it out back on solid ground. For about 5 minutes this looks like the couple everyone wants them to be. That is the thing about these high-stakes bonding moments on this show. They feel real because the fear is real and the relief is real. But surviving a cliff together does not mean you have resolved anything sitting underneath it. Jenny and Sumit kiss goodbye to their tent, still riding that adrenaline high, both of them acting like maybe this was the reset they needed. Hold on to that feeling because it is about to get wiped out completely. The second they are alone again, away from the therapist, away from the challenge, away from the audience of cameras catching the highlight reel version of them, reality is waiting. And reality does not care that they just conquered a cliff together. Reality has a 20,000 question with Sumit's name on it, and Jenny is done pretending she does not know the answer. Because what happens next does not just test these two marriages. It exposes exactly how they broke. The second Jenny and Sumit are alone in that tent, the celebratory mood is gone. Jenny does not ease into it either. She goes straight at it. Last night I found out you've been taking loans, she tells him, and that's something that, being married, you're supposed to talk to me about first. That sentence right there is the whole conflict in one line, and it only gets messier from here. Here's what Jenny just found out. Sumit took out loans behind her back, roughly 20,000 worth, to cover his parents' rent. Not a small ask he forgot to mention. A significant financial decision kept hidden, discovered after the fact instead of discussed before it. And Jenny's reaction is not even really about the money. It is about being married to someone who apparently did not think she needed to know. As she puts it to him, marriage means two people making decisions that affect them both together. That is not a controversial standard. That is fairly close to the baseline definition of partnership. So how does Sumit respond to that? He does not. Instead of an apology, Jenny gets a philosophy shift: live on the spot. Sumit tells her that if that is what she expects from him, then he does not even believe in marriage. Not "I messed up." Not "I should have told you." A flat rejection of the entire premise Jenny just laid out, delivered like it is a reasonable counterargument instead of a dodge. And look, if you genuinely do not believe in the concept of marriage, that is a conversation to have before the wedding, not after you get caught hiding a 5-figure loan. He does not stop there either. To the cameras, Sumit clarifies that he does love Jenny, but he feels like being married gives her leverage to guilt-trip him over decisions he makes. His words, not mine. He says it is wearing thin, that he is tired of living within her parameters, that he is not asking for complete freedom, just, in his words, not such a tight leash. Let's sit with that phrase for a second because it is doing a lot of quiet work. A tight leash implies Jenny is controlling him, but the thing she is actually upset about is not a curfew or a wardrobe choice. It is $20,000 in secret debt. Reframing that as her being controlling is not an accident, in my opinion. It is a way of turning the accountability conversation into a conversation about her personality instead. And it works, at least in the moment, because now Jenny is not just dealing with hurt over the loans, she is dealing with being told she is the reason he feels trapped. That is a rough position to be negotiating from, and Jenny does not have much fight left in her to negotiate at all. This is the part where I have to say plainly, none of this makes sense. If you do not believe in the concept of marriage, that is fine, that is your right. But the appropriate time to share that is not after your wife catches you in a financial secret. Sumit frames himself as someone just asking for a little breathing room. What he is actually asking for is the ability to make 5-figure decisions without consequences. Those are not the same thing, and Jenny knows it. By the end of the conversation, nothing gets resolved. Jenny is not just tired from this one talk. She is running on empty from camping, from the cliff, from her health, from carrying this relationship's communication almost entirely on her own for days. She does not have the energy left to keep pushing tonight. So the fight just stops unfinished, hanging there. And Jenny is not the only wife about to feel completely alone this episode. Because while Sumit is busy deciding marriage feels like a leash across the resort, Sarper is about to find out exactly how it feels when the people around you decide your spouse is the actual problem. The next morning, before Shakina has even had her coffee, Sarper is already managing her. Be a good girl today, he tells her. Try to keep the peace. And if that phrasing makes you wince a little, you are not alone, because there is a difference between asking your partner to stay calm and asking your partner to behave like she is a liability waiting to happen. Shakina promises she will try. Sarper does not look convinced. Honestly, neither am I. When your own spouse is bracing for you to cause a scene, that tells you something the scene itself has not even happened yet. Here is why he is worried. Today's agenda is group therapy, and not with anyone neutral. Shakina and Sarper are sitting down with Rebecca and Zed, Kara and Gumo, and Patrick and Ties. If you have been following this story, you know exactly what that means. This is the same group Shakina blew up at during the infamous bar incident, and now they are all being put in a circle together, armed with puppets of all things like felt and stuffed animals are somehow going to soften what is coming. They do not. Within seconds of the session starting, someone asks how camping went for Shakina and Sarper, and Shakina says fine. Good even. And the entire group reacts like she just told a joke with no punchline, because everyone in that room knows camping was not fine. Shakina stormed out of a session there too. She excluded herself from the group the entire time they were away. So opening with fine is not a small lie. It is the kind of lie that tells a room you are not actually ready to be honest with them. A room full of people who already do not trust you is the worst possible audience for a lie that small. From there it unravels fast. The therapist tries to hold the group together, and for a minute or two it actually works. But Patrick steers things right back to the bar fight, specifically back to Shakina telling Ties to go back to her country. Shakina's defense is that she only said it because Ties came at her first, and she is adamant it was not about ethnicity or race, it was about how Ties was acting in that moment. She points out her own husband is an immigrant, as if that alone settles the argument. Then she goes further, claiming nobody checked on her and Sarper while everyone stayed inside with Ties, framing herself as the one who got abandoned that night. Except that is not quite the full story. Gumo did go outside to check on her. Shakina turned him away and accused him of only coming out to stir things up. So the version she is telling the group conveniently skips the one person who actually tried. That is not misremembering. That is editing the story until it makes you the only victim in it. And the room notices. You can feel the tone shift because nobody in that circle is buying the framing anymore. Ties is not backing down either, and the accusations start getting sharper, more personal, less about that one night and more about who Shakina is as a person. Sarper glances between his wife and the group, and for the first time all morning, he looks like a man realizing that being a good girl today was never actually on the table. This is the moment the whole group stops arguing with Shakina and starts talking about her instead. And that shift is far more dangerous than anything said so far. Ty says it plainly. Shakina is mean. It is just who she is. And Shakina fires back immediately, denying it, insisting she has plenty of women who consider her a friend, accusing Ty's of twisting her words. But Ty's does not soften the accusation. She sharpens it. She calls Shakina racist flat out, no cushioning. That is not a word a reality show group throws around casually, and once it lands, there is no taking the room back. Now, in my opinion, that label deserves a second look before we accept it as fact. Shakina is married to an immigrant. She has a child with him. Painting her actions that one night as proof of outright racism might be the easy read, but it is not automatically the accurate one. Allegedly, her behavior at the bar was fueled by fear and chaos, not ideology. That distinction matters. But here is the uncomfortable truth sitting right next to it. Intent does not erase impact, and Shakina still has not offered anything close to real accountability for what she said. She admits, quietly, to the cameras, that she probably could have chosen her words differently, then immediately undercuts it by saying she was scared. As if fear cancels out responsibility instead of just explaining it. Sarper jumps in to defend her, reminding everyone there was glass flying that night, that she could have been hurt. Fair point, except Shakina was also throwing glass. So that defense collapses the second anyone in the room thinks about it for more than 5 seconds. A defense that only works if nobody remembers the full story is not really a defense. And this is where Patrick deliberately makes it personal. He does not attack Shakina's version of events anymore. He goes straight for her marriage. He tells her to her face that Sarper is a good guy, someone the whole group actually likes. Then he draws the line that guts her. "We just can't stand you," he says. "You are probably one of the worst people I've ever met." And immediately someone else echoes it. "Me too." That is not conflict anymore. That is a room agreeing out loud that her husband is the good one and she is the problem. Then Patrick delivers the line that changes everything. "Sarper, you should run." In my opinion, that sentence was never really about Sarper. It was about making sure Shakina understood she was completely alone. Because think about what that line actually does. It is not advice, it is a message aimed straight at Shakina, telling her that whatever comfort she had in believing they were a unit, in believing that if the whole group hated them, at least they hated them together, that comfort is gone. They do not hate both of them. They only hate her. And Sarper does not immediately jump in to shut it down. He hesitates. He lets it sit there for a second too long. Shakina breaks. She starts crying, not performative tears, the kind that come from genuinely realizing you have no allies left in the room. Now, is it fair to say the group was piling on here? Honestly, yes, a little. There is a difference between holding someone accountable and ganging up to make them feel small, and this crossed into the second category. But feeling sorry for how she was treated in that moment does not erase what got her there in the first place. She still has not apologized. She still has not owned it. Sympathy and accountability are not the same thing. And right now, Shakina only has one of them. Put these two storylines side by side and something clicks into place. Sumit and Shakina are not just two difficult people having a bad week. They are running the exact same play. Sumit hides $20,000 in loans, gets caught, and instead of owning it, he tells Jenny he does not believe in marriage anymore. Shakina says something cruel in a moment of chaos, gets called on it, and instead of owning it, she tells the group she was the real victim that night. Different situations, same instinct. Blame the structure. Blame the moment. Blame anyone except yourself. And that instinct, allegedly, is exactly why both of these marriages are in real trouble right now. Here is the psychology worth sitting with for a second. A mistake on its own is usually survivable. Partners forgive debt. Friend groups forgive a bad night. What is much harder to survive is watching someone you trust reach for a deflection instead of an apology, because that tells you something scarier than the mistake itself. It tells you how they will handle the next one. Jenny is not just angry about the loans. She is realizing Sumit's answer to being caught is to make the marriage the villain. Sarper is not just watching his wife get dragged by the group. He is watching her rewrite a night he was actually there for. Trust does not break on the mistake. It breaks on the response to getting caught. That is the real takeaway here. And it applies far outside a resort in front of cameras. If your first move after being confronted is to reframe yourself as the one who got wronged, you are not protecting the relationship, you are quietly ending it one deflection at a time. The healthiest version of either of these conversations was always available. Sumit could have said, I hid this because I was ashamed and I am sorry. Shakina could have said, I was scared and I said something horrible and I own that. Neither of them chose it. And their partners noticed. So where does that leave Jenny and Sumit and Sarper and Shakina? Heading into the rest of this season? One husband resenting a marriage he says he never wanted the rules of. One wife who just lost the only person in the group willing to defend her, including for a moment her own husband. If you want to see whether Sarper actually walks away like Patrick told him to, or whether Jenny finally reaches her breaking point with Sumit, that is exactly where the next episode picks up, and trust me, it does not slow down.